If your private parts are experiencing numbness, know you're not alone. In fact, if you're beyond 60, there's a strong likelihood that blood isn't reaching essential areas. For many men, it starts subtly. A cold sensation, a lack of energy, perhaps slight embarrassment. But left unrest, this can quietly diminish your strength, confidence, and even your bond with a loved one. And here's the crucial point no one is telling you. This has almost no connection to aging and everything to do with blood flow. I'm Dr. Laura. For over 30 years, I've assisted men facing this precise issue. Some were veterans, others, retired teachers, mechanics, farmers. Repeatedly, I observed them regain vitality, energy, and even intimacy. Not through pills or surgery, but with one straightforward daily habit anyone can perform at home. You might wonder, how could just one glass of something natural each morning help a man in his 60s or 70s feel more alive, more alert, and more connected than in years? That was my question too, until I witnessed the results firsthand. What I uncovered was a morning routine so simple yet profoundly effective that it began enhancing circulation within mere days, not just to hands or feet, but where it matters most for intimacy, energy, and peace of mind. In the coming minutes, I'll demonstrate precisely how it functions, what's in this glass, and why this minor alteration might be the pivotal moment your body has awaited. Don't leave before proceeding. If this message resonates with you and you prioritize staying strong, sharp, and connected as you age, I urge you to subscribe and enable notifications. This way, you'll never miss a simple, scientifically supported health tip specifically for men over 60. And if you're with me so far, type 1 in the comments, otherwise type 0. Your input helps me refine this content for you. The one glass morning ritual, what's inside? When I first began exploring natural approaches to bolster male circulation, I wasn't seeking a miracle. I was simply trying to help my patients feel somewhat better, to assist them in reclaiming the energy and vitality they once possessed. What I didn't anticipate was to stumble upon something so straightforward, so accessible, yet so profoundly effective that it would alter my medical practice entirely. It commenced with a journey I undertook. I had dedicated some time to visiting regions in Europe renowned for their exceptionally healthy aging populations. In a small Mediterranean village, I encountered a 74-year-old man who proudly shared that he still chopped wood every morning, tended his garden in the afternoons, and spent his evenings dancing with his wife. No pills, no procedures, just wholesome food, consistent movement, and something he consumed daily without fail. A homemade concoction he termed the fire glass. Naturally, I inquired about its contents. Upon returning home, I began experimenting with the ingredients he mentioned, adjusting them based on current scientific knowledge. After refining it with my own patients, I discovered a combination that genuinely worked. I call it the morning circulation glass. It's not a supplement, it's not a commercial product. It's a blend of natural ingredients you can prepare right in your own kitchen. Here's what it contains: 8 ounces of pomegranate juice, a deep ruby red drink rich in antioxidants, which helps relax blood vessels and supports healthy flow. 1 teaspoon of beetroot powder, a potent source of nitrates that the body converts into nitric oxide, the very compound that dilates your blood vessels. A tablespoon of lemon juice to aid in cleansing and supporting the lining of your arteries. A pinch of cayenne pepper, just enough to gently stimulate circulation and invigorate the system. And for those who prefer a touch of sweetness, a small spoonful of raw honey to harmonize the flavors. Every single one of these ingredients is backed by legitimate scientific research. More importantly, they've been used by real people. Men who entered my office feeling like mere shadows of their former selves, and within a week began to feel that vitality return. The ritual is simple. Each morning, ideally on an empty stomach, you pour the juice stir in the beetroot, lemon, and cayenne, and take a moment to drink it slowly. Do not rush. This isn't just about nutrients, it's about mindset. It's about granting yourself permission to care for your body, to choose vitality over decline, to commence your day with purpose instead of passivity. Some men report changes within days, warmer hands and feet, easier movement, a sharper mind. Others notice it first in their mood, in their demeanour, or in the way their partner looks at them after dinner. It's not magic, it's circulation. And it begins with that single glass. Now I understand what you might be thinking. If something this straightforward can be so effective, why aren't more men adopting it? Why aren't doctors proclaiming this from every rooftop? Well, part of the answer lies in what many men are unknowingly doing to undermine their blood flow, even if they're eating well and staying active. And that's precisely what we'll explore next. What men are saying. I've had the privilege of supporting thousands of men on their health journeys over the years. But I'll never forget the first time I witnessed the complete impact of this simple morning ritual. His name was Harold. He was 68 years old, retired from construction. Outwardly tough, but you could see in his eyes that something had been absent for a long time. He sat in my office and stated, "Doc, I'm not trying to be 20 again. I just want to feel like myself. I want to look at my wife and not feel like I'm disappointing her." That struck me deeply, because what he described wasn't merely a medical issue. It was emotional, relational. It concerned connection, pride, and the quiet strength men often bear without uttering a word. I provided Harold with the morning formula, guided him through the steps, and asked him to follow it for just 1 week. 4 days later, he called me, his voice brimming with an energy I hadn't heard before, and declared, "Something's different. My hands are warm." He woke up before his alarm and felt ready. By the 7th day, he said his wife had approached him and whispered, "You seem lighter, happier." That was all he needed to confirm he was on the correct path. And Harold isn't unique. Carl, a 72-year-old Navy veteran, told me he hadn't experienced this level of mental clarity since his 40s. He mentioned he used to forget why he entered a room, but now he finds himself sharp, alert and focused. Bernard, age 65, wrote to me after trying the ritual for just 5 days. "It's not just what I feel," he wrote. "It's what I see in her eyes when I enter the room. That spark is back," and George, a quiet 70-year-old from Michigan, simply stated, "It brought me home to myself." These anecdotes might seem insignificant to some, but to the men living them, they are everything. Because when your circulation improves, it's not solely about performance or blood pressure readings on a chart. It's about reclaiming something profoundly personal. Your presence in the world, your interactions with loved ones, and your self-perception. When you look in the mirror. One man even confided, "I didn't realise how much I'd lost until I started getting it back." That's the power of this ritual. It's not about chasing youth. It's about restoring dignity, vitality, and confidence. I share these stories not to make unsubstantiated promises, but to remind you that genuine change is possible. You are not stuck, you are not too old, and you are certainly not alone. But even with this ritual, some men don't experience the full benefits. When I investigated further, I discovered they were all making the same few errors. Habits that subtly obstruct blood flow, regardless of diet or activity. Once you identify these mistakes, you can rectify them almost instantly. That's precisely what we'll explore next. The 3 most common ways men unknowingly sabotage their circulation. If you're engaging in any of them, it could be why you haven't seen results yet. If you're still with me and finding this helpful, type 1 in the comments to signal your presence and engagement. Now let's proceed together to the next point. 3 mistakes that sabotage male circulation. Over my years as a doctor, I've observed something heartbreaking. Men arrive at my office hopeful. They adopt the morning ritual. improve their diet, walk a bit more. They're making positive efforts. Yet for some results are slower than expected. This used to frustrate me. I'd ponder, what are we missing? Then, through deeper investigation, I began to discern a pattern. These men were unknowingly committing minor errors, subtle habits that were undoing all the good they tried to build. These weren't major, obvious blunders. In fact, most believed they were making intelligent choices. But as I listened to their routines and posed the right questions, the same three issues consistently emerged. The first was hydration. I realise this sounds simple, but it's one of the most overlooked foundations of healthy circulation. Blood is primarily composed of water. Without sufficient fluid in your system, it thickens and slows. I cannot overstate how often I've had to remind strong, intelligent men that consuming coffee or tea does not count as water. Your blood cannot flow optimally if it's dehydrated, and if your blood doesn't flow, neither does your energy, your mental clarity, or your performance. The second mistake was something modern life has practically imposed on all of us: prolonged sitting. I had one patient, Bill, a retired accountant, who told me he sat for hours reading the newspaper, watching television, or working on puzzles. Nothing inherently wrong with that. However, when you sit for extended periods without moving blood pools, and its flow slows, your vessels cease receiving the gentle pressure necessary to remain flexible and strong. I advised Bill set a timer every hour. Just stand, stretch, take a few steps. That minor habit made a profound difference for him. The third mistake, and perhaps the most damaging, was stress. Not the kind you outwardly express, but the kind that quietly weighs on your shoulders. Financial worries, health fears, loneliness. These all elevate your cortisol levels, a hormone that constricts your blood vessels and subtly hinders circulation, regardless of how clean your diet is. I always emphasize that your heart cannot open if your mind is closed off by fear. That's why I encourage practices like deep breathing, journaling, prayer, or even a short walk outdoors, whatever brings you peace. That too is medicine. Once we addressed these three areas, water movement and stress, the results began to materialize faster. Men who had reached plateaus started feeling better within days. Their hands became warmer. Their legs felt lighter, and their minds grew clearer. They began navigating life with greater ease, more joy and enhanced presence. And here's the beautiful part. Once those results started to appear, something else returned. Belief. Belief that they weren't broken. Belief that life still offered more. And belief that growing older didn't have to mean growing weaker. This brings me to the most vital truth I've learned after decades in this field. A truth I want to impart to you. One that has nothing to do with ingredients or routines, but everything to do with what remains possible for you if you're willing to embrace it. Allow me to share that with you now. After over 3 decades of walking this path with men just like you, I can state with certainty, aging is not the adversary. Losing belief in your body, that's what truly causes damage. And the truth is, I've observed what happens when a man resolves to reclaim his health, his confidence, and the quiet passion that still resides within him. I've witnessed it too many times to attribute it to chance. We began this discussion by addressing circulation, but we ultimately delved into something far more profound. Connection to your body, your partner, your energy, your identity. That is the true essence of this single glass every morning. It's not a miraculous drink, it's a message to your body that declares, I am not giving up on you. A message to your partner that states, I still desire to show up. And a message to yourself that affirms, I am still here and I am still alive. We discussed why circulation diminishes after 60 and how it's not simply aging. It's a biochemical shift in the body that can be naturally supported. We uncovered a straightforward morning ritual using ingredients likely already in your home. We heard the narratives of real men who rediscovered warmth in their limbs, strength in their stride, and intimacy in their relationships. And we address the silent errors that impede progress, dehydration, inactivity, and unexpressed stress. But most importantly, I hope what you've gained from all this is that it's not too late. Not by any measure. You don't need to accept decline as your default. You don't need to withdraw from the life you've built or the love you still have to offer. Because the truth is, healing has no deadline, growth doesn't cease at 60, and passion doesn't vanish. It simply requires the right nourishment. So tomorrow morning, when you awaken, I want you to recall this conversation. Pour that glass, drink it with intention. Stand tall and grant your body the opportunity to feel strong again. Not just for yourself, but for those who still need you, admire you and love you. You still have so much more life to experience. Let's help your blood and your spirit flow freely once more.